baby, do I.
From Owen County to Jennings County, we're your home for country favorites, local news, and local sports. 95.3 WIKI, Carrollton, Madison.
The following program is paid for by the Rick and Rick at Night Show.
Greetings, Ohio River Valley. This is Rick and Rick at Night. We're the voice of liberty here in the whole Ohio River Valley, except what Les Damon has down in Louisville. I'm Rick Roos. My partner Rick Berry and I are glad to be here once again. How are you, Bulldog?
I'm fantastic, fired up for the senator and the future senator and the future state representative.
A conservative trifecta. I think you coined that phrase. We'd like to shout out to and express our true thanks to our friend Doc and DuPont and so many others who have served our country so valiantly. Rick, you want to go ahead and tell our audience about our guest who we hope calls in real soon?
We are waiting on Senator Dan Coates to call in, but while we're waiting on that, I'll give a little bit of background on him. Senator Dan Coates is a graduate of Wheaton College. Coates began his service to our nation in the U.S. Army before attending Indiana University of Law. After working for a life insurance company in Fort Wayne, he joined the office of then Congressman Dan Quayle as a district representative. Coates has served Hoosiers in both the U.S. House of Representatives and U.S. Senate from 1981 to 1999. Concerned about the direction of our country, Coates returned to the U.S. Senate in 2011 to help restore fiscal responsibility and ensure that future generations inherit a safe and prosperous America. In the 112th Congress, Coates serves on 4 Senate committees, the Appropriations Committee, Select Intelligence, Energy and Natural Resources, and the Joint Economic Committee. Senator Coates, are you there?
I'm here.
Well, welcome to the Rick and Rick Show. This is Rick Berry, and my partner Rick Roos is standing by, and we are so excited to have you on our show. How are you doing tonight?
Well, thank you. I'm doing just fine, and I trust you are.
You know, the first thing I wanted to ask you, Senator Coates, is we have a good friend, and you may know him. You may even be a friend of him. His name is Mike Sodrell. And Mike served in the U.S. Congress for 2 years and sat out a few years, and then with the direction our country was going, he decided to get back in because he was so frustrated with what was happening. And I kind of think that's what happened with you. Is that correct?
Well, that is correct, and I do know Mike. We've been friends for a long, long time. I'm a big fan of Mike Sodrell. I was sorry he wasn't able to prevail, but because he brought a lot to the Congress, and I think he's just a solid man. We had another very good candidate, Todd Young, and I wish I could have taken those two and put them in different districts. But you run into situations like that in the primary, and someone has to win. And in this case, Mike came in second, but he gave great service to the state of Indiana, and I think he's just a terrific person.
Well, that's what I think that vote got split 3 ways and was almost, I think it was each guy had like 30 or 31%. Maybe Todd had 33, something like that. So it was really close. But, Mike has talked to us many times about what is happening in our country. And I know we're in a dire situation. Kind of touch on that, what's going on with you in the Senate and where you see us headed.
Well, you were right in the introduction that Mike and I ran for the same reasons, and of course Todd did also. We are alarmed at what was happening under this president when they controlled both houses of Congress as well as the White House. They put through legislation that did not have any kind of bipartisan support, a very unpopular piece of legislation called which was now called the Obamacare, which we're finding out more and more about, and it didn't get fully vetted, and that's the problem with having one party control everything. In this case, the Democrats took advantage of that and tried to stuff this thing through. We also, the bigger issue here, even than that, and that's a big one, is the fact that they've run up $5 trillion of deficit in just the little less than 4 years that they've been there. And that is something that's unsustainable, that is holding down our economic growth. It's keeping people out of work. It's a subject that I was alarmed about. And when you combine all of this, and I think this ever-growing big government is the idea of big government is the answer. Send us more tax dollars so we can put more programs in place. This needed to be stopped. I've been frustrated the last 2 years that we've not been successful. The House of Representatives has put a block in the way of doing more, but the Senate's been under the control of Harry Reid, and of course the White House, the President, has not been cooperative in trying to do something about it. And that's really what this election is all about in 2012.
Senator, do you have the opportunity to talk to Senator Reid very often?
Well, you know, I get up every morning when the Senate's in session and I go to work, and my boss is Harry Reid. I wish that was not the case.
We do too.
I'm trying to think of something we see eye to eye on. I guess we see eye to eye on the fact that the sun comes up every morning, but not much else. He's just coming from a different place, and has made it very difficult in the United States Senate. So I've spent 2 frustrating years there, elected in 2010 to go back and do something about our deficit spending, get our budget in balance, and do everything I can to stop this flow of ever-growing more government, more Washington, but been frustrated at every turn, and which is why I'm focusing so much of my time and my effort of in this campaign here in 2012 in support of Richard Mourdock, and so we can do our part in hopefully turning the Senate back into Republican hands, as well as supporting our other candidates, and of course working for a Romney victory. I think the last 4 years hopefully tells the American people that we need a change.
Well, you know, having served in the Senate before, could you have ever imagined a situation where the Senate would not pass a budget for over 3 years?
No, I couldn't, because it's the law of the land. And, you know, when we are elected to office, we march down that center aisle of the Senate, and we put our left hand on the Bible and our right hand in the air, and we pledge to uphold the law. And in this case, that law has been violated by Democrat control of the Senate. You can't run a household or a business or a church or anything else without a budget to measure off of. And so what that's resulted in is just borrowing and spending without any lid on, and without any budget control. And that's one thing that we have pledged to do. First thing we will do if Republicans take control of the Senate. But it's really unconscionable that this has not happened under Democrat leadership.
Is he protecting members of his own party from having their name on a vote? Is that what the situation is with the election coming up?
Exactly right. It's not just the budget, it's just about everything else that's come up this year. He's prevented debate, he's prevented voting. You know, the people want to send us there, whether you're Republican or Democrat. They want your yes to be yes, your no to be no, and they want it attached to whatever you're trying to pass. And then under our system, they can either support that or reject that, and they can go to the ballot box and keep you in or throw you out based on how you vote. But Harry Reid, with 23 Democrats up for re-election and only 10 Republicans, said, I'm going to do everything I can to protect my guys from not having to take any tough votes. Well, we didn't get elected to pass on taking tough votes. The role of the senator is to go there and make the tough decisions and do what is in the best interest of the country, and then under our system, the people can evaluate on how they want to vote for him in the future.
This is Rick and Rick at Night. We're speaking to United States Senator from Indiana, Dan Coates. This is the taller, better-looking Rick Senator, and
well, you guys are on radio, so we really can't.
You probably remember us when you were down at the Tea Party. It was about a year and a half ago. I was the guy with the Masters hat on. You and I talked about the Masters tournament for a while.
I remember that.
And you also sent us a nice card. We really appreciated that.
Well, you were plenty good looking, and so
I wasn't shilling for that.
On the other Rick, I guess.
Well, I've got a Yankees hat on, which is not very popular right now, and I got a face for radio.
You and I have an issue there.
So is my middle son. He's a Red Sox fan, but the Obama regime, and we're calling it regime, has really caused our standing in the world to become precarious. The most, recent example being Libya, and we're also the president. We've been running 10 ads a day about. Well, at least the Tea Party down here has been running 10 ads a day about basically the Obama regime causing the situation that caused our ambassador to Libya and 3 of his guards to die. I know that we still give foreign aid to Libya. I know we give foreign aid to Egypt. And I know your office came out with a release as far as you weren't in favor of Rand Paul's proposal as far as cutting it, but as far as studying it. How long is the study, and what do you hope to find? And really, we've got to, in our view, we got to quit giving money that's borrowed to people that don't like us.
Well, I don't disagree with that, and Rand's call was to eliminate all foreign aid, to completely eliminate it. And at the time, Libya was desperately trying to put together a government in support of us, because they have a lot of problems with the same kind of groups that attacked the consulate in Benghazi. Their president immediately came out and condemned that attack, basically said, we need you to keep working with us because these guys are going to take over the whole country if we can't, if we don't have your support. And so I thought it was just the wrong time to do it. Marco Rubio gave a very stirring speech on the Senate floor, basically saying, look, none of us here want to send money to our enemies. None of us want to give foreign aid to countries that are turning their backs on us. But this is absolutely the wrong time to do this to Libya, because we're going to lose the whole thing to Al-Qaeda and the terrorists. And the government has stepped up, and he listed a whole range of things. But he said, but they're weak. They're new. They don't have the security to totally protect us. And that's why the United States made a big mistake in not providing the security when the ambassador was desperately calling for more help over there. If we could have put 25 or 50 Marines over there, I'm a peace through strength guy. You put 50 Marines over there, and nobody's going to start storming those walls, I can guarantee you. But this administration wanted to put out the false picture that everything was calm and everything was all right, and Al-Qaeda was, they took care of bin Laden, so Al-Qaeda was on the wane, as the president said, and that potential, that cover-up, hole has been blown wide open now as we get information back in terms of what really happened there. The administration is desperately trying to spin this. I'm sure it'll be a debate tonight. But I did go to the floor, and I basically said we need to reevaluate foreign aid to make sure that any aid, whether it's military or other aid, goes to those who stand with us. But right now, just saying because of this incident here, we're taking away aid from a country that is desperately trying to put itself together. The result is that it turns over to the wrong people.
And it was a very articulate speech too, Senator. I did watch it, so I knew which way you were going to go. But how long do you evaluate the evaluation process? I mean, it just seems like you get your smart guys over the Mayflower Hotel, pound it out in about 3 hours. You can figure that one out.
Well, yeah. I think you need. What I was basically trying to say was we need constant evaluation, because everything's so fluid in some of these countries right now. And what we want to do is understand the situation to the best of our ability and make our aid conditional on what's taking place there on the ground. If the government is working with us, there are new governments in place here. If they're working with us and they support us and they're doing everything they can, but they don't yet have the security apparatus built up or don't have the governmental functions built up, we want to keep working with them. If it's going the other direction, we basically say, look, you want our help, you got to be on board. You're either on board or not on board. And if you're coddling the other guys, you're on your own.
Just shifting gears just a little bit, it seems like, and Rick and I are Tea Party guys. We think you're a Tea Party guy. What do you think of the Tea Party? We don't have cloven hooves or horns anymore, or tail. But what do you think of the movement that's taken, that they keep saying it's moribund, but it's not? And I don't think we're dying. But what do you think of that movement?
And before you answer that, can you define moribund for us?
Moribund is the closest thing to dead as you can get. Absolutely not. The Tea Party has been misdefined. Of course, the Democrats want to define it as a bunch of crazy out there that is just dying and blowing away. I want to tell you, 2010 was all about the Tea Party. It was about people coming off their couches, people coming out of their businesses and out of their churches, and basically getting engaged in politics and saying, we've had it with this government that is recklessly spending us into bankruptcy. We want to send people there that are committed to deal with that and feel as passionate about this as all the rest of us. And I received their support. I was proud to receive their support, and I'm proud to represent them. But of course, the national liberal media wants to define them as some kind of right-wing kooky group. These are everyday working Hoosiers, people raising families, people helping out in their communities that have been alarmed, like the rest of us have, in terms of the direction of our country. And so we need to stand up for who we are and what we believe. And frankly, we've meshed together what has been called the establishment. I don't think that word applies either, and Tea Party people in the state of Indiana, and they've joined hands in support of candidates that share this concern. And it's the strength of our party. And I think, of course, the Democrats would like to say otherwise, but it's the strength of our party, and I think that's going to bring home a lot of good victories for us this fall.
Senator, where do you see this this Benghazi cover-up? And I mean, let's make no mistake about it. That's a cover-up, and the problem with it is the media is complicit in the cover-up. I mean, you can imagine if it was a Republican administration, if something like that would have happened, what they would have done. Where do you see? Are we going to see the results that of justice that we need to see, or is this thing going to get swept under the rug and is it going to be forgotten?
Well, we're not going to let this get swept under the rug. I serve on the Intelligence Committee.
Oh, I love hearing you say that.
We've already sent a series of questions, well over 40, to the Intelligence Committee saying we want specific answers to these questions. We're going to hold hearings when the Congress comes back in. There will be other committees doing that. This is a situation which is just confusing in terms of what has come out of the White House. They've said one thing one time and then 2 days later clarified it, and then you pick up the paper a week later and they're saying something else. It is, you can hardly help but conclude that this is driven by the election, that their whole narrative on the president's leadership on foreign policy issues was, we took down bin Laden, Al-Qaeda is drying up and blowing away, and America's a safer place, and the world is a safer place. All of a sudden, Benghazi blows up, and it destroys their narrative. And
the facts tore up the narrative.
How can we get past the election here without this thing blowing up in our face, because it undermines everything the president has been saying, and we're not going to let that go.
Do you anticipate having Susan Rice or Hillary Clinton come before you in the near future to testify?
Well, there are a number of committees that will address this, and because everything that we do in the Intelligence Committee is classified, I'm really not in a position to go into details as to just exactly what we'll do or who will come before us, but I can tell you this. We will be requesting and ordering every key person in the intelligence community and those representatives of the administration to come and answer these questions. And there will be public hearings also on this. And this is something that goes beyond politics. This goes to the integrity of the executive branch in terms of being transparent with the American people and with its elected representatives.
Well, it's just like Fast and Furious, and you know, because you hear from your constituency, but we sit out here as Americans, and we start to lose faith when we see justice not being done. And I'm so glad to hear you say that you're not going to drop it. You're going to stay with it, and we are going to find out exactly. You know, because unlike Watergate, we hear about Watergate. People died in this. People died in this cover-up, which makes it really worse. So I'm glad to hear you say that it's not going to be something that's going to be swept under the rug and forgotten.
Well, you know, and we're now learning that these people were begging for support and help. And it was as clear as the 5 fingers on your left hand or right hand here that the situation was very difficult. Red Cross pulled out, the British pulled out. There were all kinds of warning signs, threats. The ambassador was pleading for support, and it was the policy of this administration basically to tamp it down and not overreact. They thought it might be an overreaction because it undermined their political narrative. And here we end up with the ambassador and 3 others killed, people wounded, a disastrous situation, and it needs to be fully vetted.
This is Rick and Rick at Night. We're talking to United States Senator Dan Coates from Indiana. And Senator, it's almost, we haven't got enough time. I know we don't have time for the interview, but it's just, we don't, the clock's ticking, less than 2 weeks to get this done right, because he's still pushing executive orders, Obama is, as well as, you know, Homeland Security graduated a whole new class of teenagers. We never heard about this underground army before. But that's making waves. Do we have time before January 20th this next year to pull it back?
Well,
Are you hopeful?
We need to do whatever we can. We've been thwarted in going forward with the kind of responses and the kind of hearings and so forth that we would like to have. Time is of the essence here, as they say, but you know, the most important thing is just the fact that we have just a little over 2 weeks until the election, and this election is going to determine a lot of things. So if we succeed in turning over the White House here, we're going to put this country on a better path and a different path. We got 2 very different visions in front of us. We know what the one vision does because we've had 4 years of it here.
Well, part of that is getting Richard Mourdock in, and I really do appreciate all the events you've attended, as well as your strong support of a true constitutional conservative, as I believe you are as well.
Richard is a very good man. I've known him for a quarter of a century. We've been friends. We've campaigned together. That was a difficult primary, but I've been doing everything I possibly can to urge people to support him. Otherwise, I have a Democrat elected who's going to support Harry Reid. These guys insist that their members do that. That's why they give them money and why they give them support, and they enforce that. It will cancel out every vote that I take, and it'll also prevent us from taking control of the United States Senate. So there's a lot at stake. We can't take control of the Senate unless we win Indiana. So I'm doing everything I possibly can to help Richard, and I know a lot of others are too, and he's going to be a very good representative for the people of Indiana.
Senator, the problem with these kind of interviews with great Americans like you is they go by way too fast. We've only got about a minute. I was trying to think of what's one more question I could ask. Got any predictions for the election?
Well, listen, I was heartened very much by the first debate between Governor Romney and the president. What happened in that first debate, from my perspective, and I think a lot of the American people saw this firsthand, was that Governor Romney was a completely different person than what the Democrats had tried to label him as. But they also saw a president who, with all the liberal support and the spin and so forth and so on, wasn't nearly the kind of person that they thought he was or that his image was. He looked small and uninformed.
That's exactly what I said to my wife. He looks small.
Yeah, and I think that was an eye-opener to the American people. Whoa, this guy is not nearly as good as he thinks he is or everybody says he is. And Romney is not nearly as understated as people described him. He took control of that. He looked presidential. He had his facts down, and it was just night day in terms of the leadership qualities that came out in that debate.
Oh, and I even saw the same thing in the second debate. I mean, I think that the media decided they had to declare Obama the winner no matter how that thing turned out. To me, it was the same as the first one. I thought Romney dominated that one too. But, Senator, we are out of time. Can we get you back on the show?
Well, you sure can. That's the quickest half hour I've ever been through, so I would look forward to be back on your show.
And we got to get you down here to Madison, too.
And for the opportunity to be with you.
Yeah, we'd love to get you down here in person, too. Yeah, like Rick said, we'll get you to a Lincoln-Reagan dinner or something like that. And, boy, it's been great talking to you.
Terrific. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Senator.
God bless you.
All right, and you. Bye-bye.
That was Senator Dan Coates of Indiana. And next we have another candidate for the United States
right.
Senate.
That was the quickest 25 minutes. It just wasn't enough to cover. Well, we barely scratched the surface. But let's go on with the guy we got next.
Yeah. We'd like to welcome once again to the Rick and Rick at Night Show a great friend to our show and candidate for the United States Senate, Indiana State Treasurer Richard Mourdock. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you, Rick. Great to be with you. Sorry I have to do this by cell phone today, but glad to be back with you again.
You're absolutely fine. And we've got to give you frequent flyer points again, as I think this is the 5th time you've been on our show. And also, I got to do a little contrast with your opponent. You've been in Madison 5 times in the last 2 years, and we haven't seen your opponent down here yet.
Well, you know, I live down at the other end of the Ohio River, down near Evansville. So anytime I can stay close to the Ohio River, always glad to do so, and always enjoy our time there.
You know, another thing I've noticed, too, is you see Mourdock signs all over town. And the only Donnelly sign I see is No to Joe. Is that what it is?
I think I've seen that.
So down here it's looking good.
Well, I think so. You know, it's been absolutely simultaneously amazing and humbling. We have had over 7,000 people show up on our website at richardmourdock.com to sign up to be volunteers. And many times those people are signing up there as well for yard signs and things. And we ordered 33,000 yard signs, and they disappeared almost immediately. And the signs of our grassroots effort are just everywhere. And down in your area, I got to give a special shout-out here to Christine Schutte, who's our field director down, including that county, down in Jefferson County. And she's just done an amazing job and got tremendous support down there. And we're doing well all over the state, but especially in the yard sign count. I think we might have some of our highest counts down in southeastern Indiana.
We see some big ones as well, and people call in and try to get these, and we're just delighted to help set them out. And you're gonna be mentioned tomorrow at our you have been mentioned at our tea party on Saturday, but you were in a debate with Joe Donnelly and Andrew Horning. Now, have you lost your horns, cloven hooves, and tail yet? Just because you're a constitutional conservative.
Yes, I know. I was crossing the street in Indianapolis the other day, and the lady stopped me and asked, she had that look in her face. She said, "You're Richard Mourdock, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Oh, I thought you were, but you don't look nearly as grainy as you appear on television." So for all the negative ads they've run, they've tried to create quite a false image, obviously. But as we've been out and about around the state, certainly with those debates, I think people start to see what I'm really about, who I am, and I'm really, really confident going into these final weeks here. I think we're going to get this done, and I think we're going to do it by a pretty good margin.
Richard, this is Rick Barry. You know, it's a lot like what's happening with Mitt Romney. You get on regional television in the debate, people for the first time see how you are. And for the first time, a lot of people that think Mitt Romney is the second coming of Satan see him at his debate and think, my gosh, these guys are really decent guys. They're not anything like these commercials that portrayed them. And I think that's what's happened with you, and I think that's what's happened with Romney. And it's really a beautiful thing to behold, in my opinion.
Well, you know, the national media is so biased in what they do. For months and months, there's been nothing but the beatdown of Mitt Romney. And I think you're exactly right. In that first debate, especially, when he came across as a leader comes across, being very clear in his ideas, very clear in articulating his vision for America, I think a lot of people had to be shocked that this wasn't the guy they had seen so frequently portrayed by the liberal media that is the major media in the United States anymore. that we're delighted in seeing in polling here in Indiana that he's up by anywhere from 15 to 20 points. There's certainly no enthusiasm for Barack Obama and that administration, and quite frankly, who in their right mind wants another 4 years of that? And now they're seeing that Mitt Romney, not only is he just a vote other than Barack Obama, but they're seeing a guy who has a real plan, a real agenda, and is quite capable of getting this country working back on course. And I think it's going to be a marvelous election day. I think America is about to begin its renaissance under Mitt Romney.
Well, I remember at the 2010 elections, Richard, at our Tea Party, you said that the most dangerous place to be early in the morning is going to be at the foot of somebody's driveway, because there's going to be people beating it to get to those polls to vote conservative, and I think you're exactly right. You know, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We don't want to get overconfident, but I know one of the last questions Rick Roos asked you on our last show was if you were hopeful or not, and of course you were, and you thought that, you know, our better days are ahead of us. I'm really feeling hopeful now, more so than in a long time, the way things seem to be trending. I really feel like people are stepping up and understanding more than ever what's happening to our country and are ready to make a change.
I totally agree. And, you know, I've had the remarkable experience over the past 15 months of meeting some folks, and many of your listeners will recognize some of the names, perhaps not all of them, but people like Connie Mack, Josh Mandel, Deb Fisher, Ted Cruz, Rick Berg. These are other conservatives who are running for the United States Senate in this election. And the thing that I find so thrilling about them is all those people I just mentioned are quite likely going to win. And they are conservatives who want to see government made smaller. They recognize we are living beyond our means, and it's not something we can continue to do. They recognize that the only answer to this problem is to make government smaller, make it more efficient, make it more accountable. And when they get there, and may I immodestly say when we get there, I think immediately the conservatives become the majority of the Republican caucus. Because let's face it, there are some Republicans in the U.S. Senate who don't consistently vote a pro-growth conservative agenda. And that's going to change. And I think that's the best news of all for America, because not only do I think Republicans will have the majority in the U.S. Senate, but it'll be a conservative majority within that majority, and then that point of view becomes more and more dominant. And I think it's going to be exciting, and as I said a moment ago, I think we are on the verge of American Renaissance.
That's exciting. But I meant to let you know that Joe and Andy, my older sons, and I early voted for you. So on this radio station, we put you over the top. Now you're going to become a U.S. Senator. We're just working on your margin now. But
absolutely.
Your opponent.
And who said a moment ago, let's not get ahead of ourselves?
Well, that would be Barry. He's the conservative of the two. But your opponent mentioned the Madison Tea Party, and we were happy to get that acknowledgement. But he kind of took things out of a little context. What are your plans as far as changing Social Security and changing Medicare?
Well, you know, let's start with his misstatement. The fact is that Social Security and Medicare, you know, our founding fathers did not put those words in the Constitution, but they also didn't put in the words the Federal Bureau of Investigation or the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. And yet, as time has gone by, those two programs, Social Security and Medicare, are something for which the government has made a fundamental contract with the American people. And I've said since day one of this campaign, the government must honor that contract. I think when reform comes, and it will, whenever that day arrives in the next several years, anyone on that day over the age of 55 needs to be made assured that every promise that's been made to them for both Social Security and Medicare will be kept to the penny. I mean, they've worked their whole lives with that as the understanding. The government cannot betray that. But by the same token, it's wrong to make promises you know you can't keep. And at the present level of cost, younger Americans shouldn't be expecting those same benefits. And so when the day of reform comes, I'm hoping by age group, say between 50 and 55 and 45 and 50 and so on down to the earliest working years, people are given a different set of promises so they can understand and they can plan and even be incentivized to save more for their own Medicare, to save more for their own Social Security, their own retirement and health care costs. And if we do that, then we can have a system that will work for all, and government will keep its promises.
Well, we need to remind the listeners, when Social Security first came out, some 70 years ago or whatever, life expectancy was about 65 years old. There were about 19 workers for every recipient of Social Security. Now life expectancy is upwards of 80 years old. We have 3 workers for every retiree, and you don't have to be a math whiz to see that this thing is slowly, the house of cards is slowly going to fall on that, and it just doesn't add up. So there are reforms that have to be done. It's simple math.
It is simple math, and let me add one other part to the equation, which is, you're right, there's 3 people working for each one retired, but 2 other parts of that equation, as people are, baby boomers are getting older, that number from 3 is going to go to less than 3, and as the people are working, because we see this ratcheting down of our wage rates under the Obama economy, if that doesn't change, it means there'll be less taxes being paid in. So every way you can look at the equation, it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And it's a situation we must deal with. To continue on with the Harry Reid approach of not even trying to consider these things, by not even bringing up a budget for more than 3 years, is just unbelievable and unacceptable. You know, my opponent, should he be elected, his first vote will be to send Harry Reid back to the majority leader position. And I love it. He's been going around the state saying, I may not even vote for Harry Reid. Well, it doesn't matter if the Democrats are in a majority and he's part of that majority. Even if he wouldn't vote for Harry Reid's still going to be the leader. And Harry Reid has demonstrated total failure of leadership, and we've got to replace it.
Well, he did that last time when he was in Congress against Pelosi. He said, I'm not sure I'll vote for Speaker. First vote he took. And this is Rick and Rick at Night. We're talking to U.S. Senate candidate Richard Mourdock. And switching gears just a little bit, Richard, what do you believe should and can be done about tax reform?
Well, the first thing that has to be done regarding tax reform is we have to cap spending. We have to either pass the balanced budget amendment that Mike Lee has presented that would cap federal spending at some percentage of our gross domestic product. He presented 18%, which is a big number, but right now we're spending almost 25%, so it'd be a great improvement. But once we cap spending, either with a constitutional amendment or with some other mandate passed by Congress, then we can start by seeing how much money we need to bring in pursuant to that cap, and then I think we need to broaden the tax base. I think there needs to be a part of our federal taxes that are paid through a national sales tax. Not all of it, but there needs to be some part that is a national sales tax, because today we have 47% of all American households that pay nothing in income tax. And guess what? They don't care how big government grows because it doesn't cost them anything. They don't have any skin in the game. And everyone, as an American citizen, should have some level of skin in the game. We have an incredible military that stands for our defense. We have many programs that are vital to the American way of life. Every American ought to be contributing something to those programs. And I think that national sales tax, even if we have very low-income people, and I know there are those out there, at the end of the year, if they get a rebate of 90% of the money they pay, I'm perfectly fine with that. At least then they know they've paid something, and they're going to start to pay more attention to the out-of-control spending of the government.
Well, and the scary scenario is if that number right now, like you said, is 47%. If that number gets up over 50, and you figure most of those people are going to be voting their interest of getting something from the government, that's the really terrifying thing, is that we'll have a majority voting for the government to give them something.
Yeah, it is terrifying, because not only do we have such a high percentage of people not paying in, we do have that very high percentage of people who are receiving benefits. But on those who are paying in, and I get beat up all the time for being too harsh and too conservative and all that, let's set the record straight here. Unfortunately, a lot of what happened in the fact that people are not paying taxes now was part of the George W. Bush administration with the Earned Income Tax Credit. It was a horrible idea, and unfortunately it passed, and now we have so many people, as I say, who not only aren't paying taxes, but in fact are getting money back, and that's not a good idea.
Now, the national sales tax, is that the fair tax, or I wasn't sure what you were talking about the other night in the debate.
It's not the fair tax. You know, the fair tax, and I've not endorsed the fair tax, because the fair tax would do away with all other taxes, and you just have one tax, one national sales tax. Is something, you know, I see all kinds of numbers thrown out there, and this is why I haven't endorsed it, because nobody knows exactly what it is. But it would be one national sales tax with some very high tax rate of like 26 or 28 or 30%. I don't think that's the right way to go, but I do believe that sense of a sales tax and having everyone contribute something is the important thing.
Richard, this is Rick Berry again. We're getting a little bit low on time. I want you to give us some examples of how Joe Donnelly is running away from his record. The amazing thing is what President Obama has done with getting these people to vote his way. Now they're hightailing or trying to run their, you know, it almost sounds like you talking up there at the debate, but he can't hide from his voting record. Give us some examples of some of his votes that he's trying to hide from or run away from.
Sure, and unfortunately, I've only got a couple minutes here. You know, you're right. He's trying to act like he's a Republican, and by the way, he keeps trying to appeal to the Dick Lugar voters. I mean, he voted against the Dick Lugar vote in every one of the major issues of the last several years, but to the point, where is he flip-flopped? Well, let's start with the inheritance tax. He was on the record saying he wanted to lower the inheritance tax, which is a huge thing, especially in Indiana agriculture. The first time he had a chance to vote on the inheritance tax, it was going to be done away with, and instead he voted to continue it at the present levels. With the issue of Obamacare, perhaps the biggest issue of government we've seen in our lifetime, he was quoted as saying he was against a national health care system. He was quoted in a newspaper article saying he was against the Massachusetts-style national health care system. When Obamacare started to come together, he said he was absolutely against Obamacare and would never vote for it. And then when the push came to shove, he stepped forward and he cast the deciding vote. He was one of the two Pac-12, one of those people because of the issues whether or not funding would be used to promote abortions and fund abortions. He said he'd never, never, never vote for it, and at the last minute he caved in to do so. So those are certainly some examples, and as he's gone on and on with different issues, it's just been an amazing thing to watch. And as you say, now he's acting more like a Republican than a Democrat.
Yeah, we're not trying to hype him, but I did hear that he had problems paying his own property taxes on, two homes, a lakefront home in Michigan City and Lakeshore Drive, and I'm just sitting there going, wow, he's one of us, but we pay our taxes.
You know, that issue is one that I know there's some ads out there running, and they are what they are. And, you know, the bigger thing here, I worry about how the guy votes when he's there. I mean, taxes at the local level obviously are an issue, and you ought to pay the tax bills for cents. And the fact is, when he goes to Washington and votes against the way he tells his own constituents he's going to vote, I think that's a very bad sign. It's and you know, he really his principles, and I think he's an honest guy, but his principles capitulate every time there's some partisanship. Every time Nancy Pelosi leans on him, he folds up like a cheap card table. And that's not what we need in the United States Senate. We need somebody who's going to take a stand firm, mean what they say what they mean, and be consistent in their votes. And ironically, that's what he blasts me for doing, because I stand for my principles. You know, I guess what he's saying is we ought to elect unprincipled people, and I totally disagree with that.
A wise man said, Richard, that if a liberal really articulated what he stood for and what he was going to do, he'd never have a chance of getting elected. So they say these kind of things, they get elected, and they do the exact opposite, because they know they'd never get elected, like President Obama, if he actually said what he was going to do. And that's the beauty of being a conservative. We're proud of what we stand for, and we're not afraid to articulate it.
That's right. In the debate you mentioned, the most fun of the whole evening for me was to ask the question, and I kind of laid out the economic results of the last 4 years. Gasoline has gone from $1.89 to $3.50. The average home price has gone down 12%. The average wage has gone down something like $4,400 for American household. College education has gone up 25%. Our national debt's increased 49%. All of this under Mr. Obama, and Congressman Donnelly, you've again endorsed Barack Obama. Why is that a good thing for Hoosiers? And he about ripped the arms off the podium there.
You know, Richard, I like to say, people say that President Obama is the worst thing that ever happened to the Republican Party. I believe he's the worst thing that ever happened to the Democrat Party. I mean, he's pigeonholed them into a situation where the enthusiasm's gone. I think the votes are going to be gone. It's really, and they have to run away from him. It's really kind of sad for the Democrat Party, but they need to get back to more traditional American values if they ever want to come back.
Well, I've got just enough gray hair to remember quite clearly the years 1977 through 1980. Our economy had fallen apart. We had our first energy crisis. We were being so disrespected overseas that 53 Americans were taken hostage inside an embassy in Tehran. And when everything seemed its darkest, suddenly we went from Jimmy Carter to Ronald Reagan. I don't think we ever would have had Ronald Reagan if we'd not had Jimmy Carter. And I'm not ready to predict that Mitt Romney is going to be the next Ronald Reagan. But I do believe, because we're going to have a much more conservative U.S. Senate with a President Mitt Romney, I think it's going to be a good thing for conservatism, which means it will be a good thing for America, which, by the way, means it will be a good thing for the world.
You know, Richard, I was listening to Glenn Beck, and he likes to say this is the second great awakening. In a lot of ways, I think you're right. I think we've woken up. We're telling our kids what's going on. People are engaged like no time probably in the last 100 years. So it's a beautiful thing to behold, and I just hope it keeps on. And, right now we're hopeful. We're not going to get ahead of ourselves, but things are looking good.
Well, I'm confident, but I'm not cocky.
Absolutely.
We have 2 time zones in Indiana, and I will be working until 6 p.m. in the Central Time Zone on November 6th to make sure we get to the finish line as a victor here, and looking forward to that day.
This is Rick and Rick at Night. We're talking to Richard Mourdock, candidate for United States Senate. Richard, just briefly, if we can go into the foreign policy debacle, particularly of Libya and Egypt, and I know Senator Coates was talking about as far as studying. I think Rand Paul wants to cut off all the foreign aid. Where do you come down on the issue of giving taxpayer monies to other countries, particularly those countries that bear us ill?
Well, let's start with what I think is a really dumb policy. Why are we giving foreign aid money to those nations from whom we are borrowing money? When they're coming in, they are so well off. They're buying the debt of the United States. Why are we turning around and giving their money right back to them? This is the policy that defines any kind of, I think, logical reasoning and almost defies the laws of finance and the simple transfer from one country to another so we can give it back to them, and then we end up paying interest to them for the money that we're giving back to them. It's craziness, and that's something that ought to cease. To the broader issue of how we use foreign policy dollars, when we see people, well, let's use Egypt for example. We now see the Muslim Brotherhood in control of Egypt. And we really don't know which direction they're going, but we certainly can, I think, quite logically conclude that they are going more and more towards policies that disagree with traditional American values. I think we need to be saying to them right off the top, if you start down that direction, we're going to start down the direction of withdrawing our aid support.
And Richard,
there are others. Sure, go ahead.
The Muslim Brotherhood, they were guests in the White House here not too long ago. Is that right?
I don't know, honestly. I know there have been a number of people in there from a lot of different countries. I think there probably has been, but I don't have a name. So, short of having an actual name of someone who's affiliated, I'll hold short and say it's certainly possible. But
I think so. And then you got Joe Biden, the vice president, saying that this is the most pro-Israel administration in history, and you just throw your arms up and think, my God, they'll say anything.
Well, I was in Israel last summer, summer of 11, and I'll tell you, talking to Israelis on the streets, they certainly don't see it that way. They are wide-eyed at the suggestion that the President of the United States would say to Israel, of all countries, that they need to start to negotiate with the precondition being that they will withdraw to their 1967 borders. It is, as Benjamin Netanyahu and many others have said, that would be an indefensible position for the state of Israel, and to me it's unconscionable if the President would put that forward as a demand when in so many other trouble spots in the Middle East, he says there ought not be preconditions. It makes you wonder who he thinks our friends are.
Richard, we got to draw this to a close right now, but we do wish you well, and God bless you, sir, and keep it between the ditches and sunny side up, dirty side down, and all that
Well,
other
I
CB
also
stuff.
want to tell the people out there, we understand how hard you're working, Richard. I mean, you came to our tea party. You came from Evansville at 8 o'clock in the morning to our tea party at noon. And from there, I think you had to go to northern Indiana. This was about a year ago. You've been all over the state nonstop. That signifies or shows your work ethic. And I know it's going to be the same when you get into the Senate, God willing. So I want the listeners to know that if you just pay attention, Richard Mourdock is working his tail off, and he'll continue that work ethic when he gets into the Senate.
Well, thank you. We're looking forward to it. Again, we take nothing for granted. We're going to be working hard, though, and keep going, and we certainly would appreciate the support of everyone, and they can check us out at richardmourdock.com, as always. And we still need volunteers, so if people would like to help on Election Day or whatever, sign into our website. We can use your help there. Thank you.
God bless you, Richard.
This is Rick and Rick at Night, the voice of liberty here in the Ohio River Valley, and we're joined for the third part of our Conservative Trifecta with Justin Stevens, who's candidate for the Indiana 66th District of the General Assembly. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you, Rick. I'm not sure what you were thinking when you put me on the same show with Mourdock and Coates, but I'll take it.
Conservative Trifecta.
They both said they were humbled.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, definitely.
You're on the home stretch, pal. How's it going?
Yes, sir. I'm tired, but we're pushing through. We got 15 days left. So been working hard, knocked on over 5,000 doors. We've met a ton of people in all three counties, Scott County, Clark County, and here in Jefferson County. And I'm learning to love Madison more and more every time I'm here. So not planning on moving yet, but love it here. Love it here. Love the people, and have been very encouraged by a lot of people. So.
Well, Justin, I'll tell the folks out there that I think it was about a week ago, and I know you got a huge area to cover. I know what it's like going door to door. It's hard for me as a city councilman just in my district, and
yes.
that's probably 1/50th of the area you've got to cover. I get a knock on my door, my dog goes crazy like he always does, and I go to the door, and there you are.
Yep.
And you're at my door, and I thought, man, okay, that's great. You're working at it, and it was good to see you. But I definitely wasn't going to take up much of your time.
I was going to say, I didn't figure I had to stay very long to get your vote, so we moved on next door. But yeah, we've been working hard, and people are receiving the message very well. I'm a hard worker. I'm going to be in my seat every day. I'm going to work hard when I'm going to work just as hard as I have been the last 4 months when I get there, and I want to represent the people. I'm not in this. I'm not in this for the pay. It doesn't pay that well. I'm not in this for the glamour. Really, I'm in it because I want to serve people. I hope they know that, and I hope I'm able to show that and earn people's respect and trust over the next couple of years. So.
We'd like to give a shout out to Harry's Stone Grill, where we're going to be going in a few minutes. But it's right across the street from Wendy's on Clifty Drive. But Justin, as your two predecessors on this show, you have a reputation as a constitutional conservative. I'm guessing you read the Indiana Constitution. I guess you understand what it's there for.
Yes, sir.
What priorities have you been hearing from the people as far as the priorities you bring really in this race against somebody that walked away from his responsibilities twice?
Well, I think they want someone up there that's looking out for their best interests. What I tell people is I want to be a representative that serves you. I don't expect you to serve me. And so, when we're taking your tax dollars, if I have to spend your money, I'm going to spend it as if I spend my own. I've told people around the district, my wife and my wife stays home. We're very frugal with our money. We get $10 a week spending money a piece, and when that's gone, it's gone. And so in government, we have a limited amount of money, and we spend it wisely. I want to spend it on things that are going to be effective and efficient. And then whatever money we don't use, I'm going to give it back to the rightful owners, and that's not me. That's not me. I'm not the rightful owner of your money or your money. You are the rightful owner of your money, so I'm going to give it back to you if we don't absolutely need it. And so people want to hear that message that someone is in public office, wants to serve them, doesn't want to rob from them, doesn't want them to serve the but wants someone that's going to serve them. So that's the message I've been spreading. We look at things that are important, and people want to hear that we're going to be effective with their money. We're going to be efficient with it. And then, education obviously is a huge deal in this community and the communities next door. We want to make sure that we're giving people what they need. We want to make sure that we're looking out for the child first and foremost. And we're really just spreading that message. 55% of our state's budget goes to education. We want to use those dollars wisely. We want to be good with that. We want to provide our kids with the best education possible. In some of these communities, some of the things I've been hearing about, we have huge drug problems in southern Indiana. What do you do with those issues? And I'm not going to pretend that I know all the answers. And I think people like that. When I go talk to people at their doors, I let them know that I don't know all the answers. I'm not going to. I want them to talk to me. And so that's the type of representative that I want to be. I want to be someone that sits down, that gets everyone's ideas, and that really takes them to the State House. I'm not the man with all the ideas and the best ideas. I need other people to help me along, and that's what I intend to do as state representative, to be really a representative of the people. So
and hopefully you and I'm on the city council here in Madison. Hopefully you and I can work together. I have worked with Senator Smith. I actually did do a little bit of work with he will be former Dave Cheatham,
yes,
with the drug problem.
Yes, sir.
And of all the issues I see here in Madison as far as a problem, that's the number one.
Yeah.
And we're seeing it in the paper almost every night, something going on.
We have overcrowding of our jails. You go to Scott County, we have a jail that's supposed to hold 58, and we have 120 people. And most of them is drug-related. My brother runs a nonprofit in Scott County called New Creation Addiction Ministries. He's doing this all day long. He's in the trenches. And, we want to provide any help that we can. Government's not the answer. It's a hard issue, and it's an issue that families have to just fight through. And, so I don't know what level the government can be involved in.
They are beginning. They're closing some of these loopholes with these synthetic drugs.
Sure.
Which before allowed people just to kind of change the composition of what they were putting together a little bit, and all of a sudden it was legal again, even though the effects of it were the same. So they are making some progress there. But I look forward to working with you on that.
Yes, sir.
But part of it also, I think one of the major parts of the Indiana Constitution is not the same as protect and defend, but our safety. One of the things that I hope you bring to Indianapolis is a renewed interest as far as working with city and county government, as far as in case of a national emergency, in case of some kind of emergency, because there's something there, but we don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And Homeland Security has been changed. I almost used a different word that Tom said I couldn't use, as far as Homeland Security is enforcing the smoking ban.
Yeah.
And Homeland Security to me means protecting people.
Is that really where we want to go to? So we look at things that have happened in the past in our country, and are we defended from outside forces? Are we ready for things like that? So I absolutely agree. That's one of the main things of the Constitution, and the United States as a whole, and Indiana as well. Are we protecting our people? So, I agree with you, Rick.
And Justin, the time's drawing close. We want to get you on our election night or pre-election night show on November 5th. And for the liberals out there, actually Election Day is November 7th. But we want to get you back on.
Yes, sir.
We wish you well and Godspeed.
Thank you.
I also want to say, Justin was, you spoke at the Ohio Theater this past Saturday.
Yes.
We had about 300 people in there. And, of course, I was backstage because I had to MC the daggone thing. But, you were very well received by the people. I couldn't see their faces, but I could hear the claps. So that was really nice.
It was a great event.
You gave a great address, and the people, they liked you. So that was good thing to see.
Thank you.
Patriot Terry sent us a quote by James Madison in 1788. There are more instances of the abridgment of the freedom of the people by gradual and silent encroachments of those in power than by violent and sudden usurpations. I trust you're part of the peaceful revolution that's got to take place in our government. But I do thank you for being here, Justin.
My pleasure. Hopefully I'll be your state rep here in about 15 days.
Well, that's...
we hope so, too. Yeah, and we're doing all we can here.
I know you are.
Yes, absolutely.
Jefferson County has been great to me, so I really appreciate it.
And I think you've been here about every day the last couple of weeks.
Been here a lot.
Now, we're going to be back for another exciting pre-election eve broadcast of Rick and Rick at Night on Monday, November 5th. We'd like to thank our friend Tom for working the board, and our friend Lisa and Dr. Michael Israel for welcoming Patriots at Harry Stone Grill. Good night, Madison and America. God bless and keep our listeners in this, the most wonderful country in the world. For our local audience, we're going to Harry Stone Grill. Harry, toll us a poor one.